Okay, let's dive into something that, well, feels incredibly pressing right now. We're tackling a topic that really touches on fundamental safety, your safety, particularly for women. It's a subject that can feel a bit overwhelming, maybe even daunting.
Yeah, definitely.
But the sources we've been looking at, they frame preparedness not just as a choice, but, well, almost as a necessity today.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's prompted by material that comes from a self-defense academy. But, our mission isn't really about endorsing them specifically.
Right.
It's about going through the information they are presenting about self-defense for women. We want to pull out the core insights, the facts they use, and their perspective on things like firearm training and what being prepared actually means according to them.
So we'll look at the data, the arguments they use to build this case for why self-protection is so vital now.
Yeah, and then we'll unpack the specific methods they talk about and also the impact they say this training has.
The goal here is really to help you, the listener, understand what these sources are saying is crucial for navigating potential danger.
Okay.
So let's start with what they call the stark reality. They kick things off by asking a pretty fundamental question. Why is self-defense being presented as essential, like absolutely essential, especially for women right now?
Well, they frame it around what they call a sobering reality. They cite these pervasive concerns people have about personal safety. And they talk about high-stakes situations, those unexpected moments where your safety could really be on the line.
And they don't waste time getting to the numbers to sort of underscore that reality. They bring up FBI data stating that roughly 1 in 5 women in the U.S. will face violent crime in their lifetime.
1 in 5. That statistic alone is, it's significant.
It really is.
And they add to it. They point out that in just 1 year, 2021, there were nearly 900,000 violent crimes reported against women in the U.S. Things like assault, robbery, physical violence. And what these sources really emphasize is that even if overall crime rates fluctuate, they argue the frequency of violent crime against women hasn't really seen a meaningful drop. Not in cities, not even in the suburbs, so they say.
So it's presented as this broader issue, not just isolated incidents.
Exactly. And here's where they make a crucial connection. According to the material, they link those, difficult statistics directly to how effective preparedness can be.
How so?
They cite research like the National Crime Victimization Survey, which apparently suggests women who can defend themselves are significantly less likely to get physically injured during an attack.
Okay, so being prepared isn't just about feeling safer in their view.
No, it's presented as a tangible factor, something that actually reduces harm based on that data.
And to make that point really hit home, they ground those national stats in a specific local example mentioned in the material.
Right. They reference reports from, I think it was FOX 35 Orlando, about nighttime assaults on women in Altamonte Springs. They even mentioned police sketches being released.
Using local incidents like that really underscores how the bigger risk data can translate to, immediate personal concerns for people.
Mm-hmm. The sources use these examples to kind of drive home their argument that danger, as they see it, is real, it's present. And so preparedness becomes this critical evidence-backed strategy based on the data they've put together.
Right. So they lay out this case for why preparedness is needed. The next logical question they tackle is, okay, how? How do you actually prepare? What methods do they highlight?
Well, the sources propose that one of the most effective tools for protection is a firearm.
Okay.
They argue it gives you distance, which is critical, and a defensive advantage in those really high-stress encounters.
But they're incredibly clear, almost immediately saying that just owning one is only step one.
Right, absolutely. This material really hammers home that learning how to handle it safely, store it properly, use it effectively, responsibly, that's completely non-negotiable in their view.
And that's where the dedicated training comes in, like that pistol defense class they mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. What's interesting is they broaden the idea of training way beyond just, the technical gun skills.
What else do they include?
These sources emphasize that essential parts of self-defense have to include things like situational awareness.
Just paying attention, basically.
Yeah. Noticing your surroundings, identifying potential threats, maybe avoiding them altogether. They also list risk assessment, figuring out how dangerous a situation might be, and decision-making under pressure, which is huge, right? Because danger situations are rarely calm.
Definitely not. And the material details other specific elements too.
Yes, things like escape and evasion techniques, if someone grabs you or tries to restrain you. They also talk about effective strikes and blocks, simple, powerful physical moves. Not requiring years of martial arts, they stress.
So practical stuff.
Right. And alongside the basic firearms, safety and use, which they do note is optional in some contexts, but covered, they include things like de-escalation tactics.
So it sounds like a layered approach.
Yeah. Physical skills, mental readiness, and potentially responsible firearm use, all layered together.
And a key element they highlight is this scenario-based training approach.
That's right. They actually build their training drills based on statistics and real-life case studies.
Can you give an example?
Sure. They mention simulating incidents in isolated areas. Why? Because, and they cite Bureau of Justice statistics for this, apparently 60% of female assault victims said the assault happened when they were alone in an isolated spot.
Wow. So training based on that kind of statistic is their way of grounding the practice in, well, documented reality.
Exactly. It's about preparing your mind and your body for the kinds of encounters that, according to their research, are statistically more likely.
Did they mention other specific drills designed for that pressure?
They did. Things like drawing and firing under pressure, low light shooting.
Right, because many crimes happen at night or in poorly lit areas.
Precisely. And also moving around obstacles, safely reloading a firearm, things like that.
And the goal, as they describe it, goes beyond just muscle memory, that automatic physical action.
Yeah, it's not just about doing something automatically. It's designed, they say, to build true mental readiness and the specific mindset you'd need to respond effectively in those unpredictable, really high-stress situations.
Which brings us neatly to the impact they report from this kind of training. What do these sources actually say happens to women after they go through this process?
Well, the absolute key benefit they highlight, and they mention it repeatedly, is a really significant transformation in confidence.
Confidence.
The sources state pretty explicitly that gaining practical knowledge and skill, like, for instance, handling a firearm effectively, is presented as the direct path from feeling fearful to feeling genuinely prepared, feeling capable.
And do they back that claim up with anything?
They do. They cite a 2020 Pew Research Center survey. Apparently, it found that women who had actually undergone firearm training reported feeling notably more confident about their ability to defend themselves, especially, it seems, in higher crime areas.
Interesting. And connecting that back, the sources suggest that confidence itself can be a deterrent.
Yeah, they make that point quite strongly, that someone who carries themselves with awareness, with self-assurance, with readiness, well, in their view, that person is less likely to be targeted.
The idea being that criminals often look for what they see as easy targets.
Exactly. Someone who seems distracted or vulnerable or maybe timid. Displaying confidence counters that, according to the sources.
Now, just for context, they do briefly mention the specific provider, Valortec, right? How does that fit in?
Right. They mention it briefly as context for why these specific sources are making these claims about effectiveness and confidence. They describe it, I believe, as a woman veteran-owned business, and that the instructors have backgrounds in law enforcement, military, competitive shooting, stuff like that.
And they highlight things like women-focused instruction, a supportive environment.
Yes, those are mentioned as factors contributing to achieving the results they report, the skills and that confidence boost. But the focus is really on the type of training and its claimed outcomes.
Got it. So the overall message these sources are putting forward is this strong link between realistic, specific training,
which includes physical skills, mental prep, maybe firearms proficiency.
And not just the practical ability, but a fundamental shift in mindset. Empowering women, moving them from feeling potentially vulnerable to feeling capable, confident in protecting themselves.
That seems to be the core argument they're making, yes.
Okay, so to sort of wrap up this deep dive into these particular sources, they present a pretty clear view of the safety concerns they see facing women today.
They argue persuasively for preparedness, using crime data to back it up.
They detail specific training methods, focusing on both the skills and that crucial mental readiness piece.
And they report significant benefits, like that increased confidence and the shift in mindset we talked about.
So the sources put a really strong emphasis on developing that mental readiness for danger, the kind that can just spring up unexpectedly in really high stress moments.
Yeah, that mental muscle, as you called it.
Right. So given their focus on building that for the unpredictable, what does the information they shared about training for these scenarios, what does that imply about maybe the ongoing effort needed, to maintain that preparedness beyond just taking an initial course?
That's a really interesting point to consider. The sources focus heavily on the initial training and its impact, but the nature of what they're training for. Yeah, it does make you think about maintenance.
Something for you, our listener, to mull over, perhaps. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.